No, actually. Yeah. Good morning, all of you. And good evening, Dr. Muralikrishnan, Dhanasekaran. Welcome you on the National Pharmacovigilance Week of Alvar Pharmacy College. Today we have a great speaker on the board to present the importance of clinical pharmacy, pharmacovigilance, and pharmacy practice for India. So what are the importance and why do we need all these things for Indian pharmacy practice? So we have among us Dr. Muralikrishnan Dhanasekaran. I don't have a special slide for introducing him, reciting his profile. He is with me from 1988. We are together. We were together in our alma mater, Anamala University, and we are together in life since then. So he's my one of my family member, and he is presenting for you that lecture. He is taking a lot of pain for making this lecture and making this presentation in the hard time. This is something around 10:30 in the night. Yeah. So he's waiting for us to deliver the lecture. So I welcome all of you for this lecture. This is the last 5th lecture on this series of National Pharmacovigilance Week. So far we have heard from different speakers of Indian leadership. Now we have the person who is sitting outside India and looking into India, what the things are going on, how the practice is there in India, and what do we need to improve. Actually, when you go out of India, you will feel more and more that our India has to grow like this and like this in this field, like this in this field, like that. So this is a kind of sharing his interest towards our country, our system of pharmacy practice, how to improvise our system, how to have the system to be get alert. When we say about pharmacovigilance, it is not. It should not be constrained with the words. It should be expanded in services also. So to deliver the talk, I'd love to welcome Muralikrishnan Dhanasekaran. Please welcome, and the presentation will be delivered. I request Dr. Repurposing and Praveen Goyal to take care of the attendees who are joining the meeting. So since now there are people waiting in the waiting room, please look into it. With this, with all of love from Alvar Pharmacy College, the students, the teachers, the staff, and the management, I welcome Dr. Muralikrishnan Dhanasekaran to deliver his talk. Also, one good thing that I have requested Dr. Muralikrishnan Dhanasekaran to conduct one workshop during the National Pharmacy Week, physically in our Alvar Pharmacy College, on the neuropharmacology methods and models. So that will be a workshop conducted to all the pharmacy teachers in Alvar Pharmacy College campus physically. So he has kindly accepted, but he has to get the required permissions from the department, and he has to plan his travel and all those things accordingly. So this pharmacy week, I hope after completing this pharmacovigilance week, we will be going towards the pharmacy week. And during the pharmacy week, we will have something glory and better in Alvar Pharmacy College. Welcome, Dr. Muralikrishnan. This stage is yours.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for your kind invitation and opening speech. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As always, today we are going to talk about the need of clinical pharmacy and pharmacovigilance in India. That's the topic. As always, I would like to thank Dr. Jayabal. As he told, we have been together in this. We have known each other for more than 25 years. he has been a great guide, kind of a family member throughout my life. Thank you, Dr. Jayavalan, for this kind invitation. So let's start. So today, I just want to focus on healthcare profession. What are the different types of healthcare profession? Where do we as a pharmacy stand in the healthcare profession? That's the first question. What is the profession of pharmacy? How is that? How has it changed? Okay. And what is this clinical pharmacy? What can we do in India with this concept of clinical pharmacy? And then at last, let's focus on pharmacovigilance. As a pharmacist, what are the role that we can play in the development of the profession? Okay. So let's talk about that. So to start with regard to the healthcare professionals, there are different types of healthcare professionals. Okay. So still we have this, when we always think about the physician, dentist, nursing professionals, we have pharmacists, but currently we have physician assistants that is becoming very popular in North America. If you come to America and Canada, they have a lot of physician assistant. You have therapists, you have psychologists, you have technicians. All of these professionals come under the umbrella of healthcare professionals. Okay, so definitely we as a pharmacist should know what is the team that we are playing with. Earlier, we were only playing with a physician or a dentist, or sometimes we also have, at least in Northern America, they have to interact with veterinarians. Okay, the veterinary pharmacology is a very big concept in Northern America. So as a professional, the first thing for us to understand, who are the healthcare professionals? Whom do we interact with? So that is the major concept that we are talking about. So as I told you, make sure that we understand that. So it's not always the clinician, a physician, a dentist, or a nurse, but the word healthcare profession has become a very broad concept. So the first concept I just want to let you know is this particular concept has become a very, very big concept. Healthcare profession has become a very big concept. So that is the first take-home message I want to let you guys know. So now, where do we stand? As a pharmacist, where do we stand? So the most important thing is, as a pharmacist, it is the third most prevalent healthcare profession. So that is the reason I just want to make you understand that. It is the third most popular or prevalent healthcare profession. So that is the thing. As a pharmacist, we have to make sure that we understand our role. Then now, what is a healthcare profession? So International Labour Organization and World Health Organization, they are explaining what is a healthcare profession. So number one, definitely we understand to maintain health in humans. So definitely that's the first concept. Second one, to diagnose, to treat and prevent. So that, in other words, prophylactic approach, therapeutic approach, and also for diagnosis. And then advice, very, very important. Pharmacists are playing a very important role as an advisory with regard to healthcare. Then we have supervision of other healthcare workers. The most important concept in the last few decades have been conducting research. So how do we conduct a research? Based on the background literature, based on the current scenario, we should understand the lacuna, the gap in the literature. So we have to develop a hypothesis. So we have to have an appropriate experimental design to meet the hypothesis-based specific aims. So once we have that, we can have a valid result. We need a proper statistician to make sure that we can validate our data. So again, with regard to healthcare professionals, definitely in a broad picture, we always think about diagnosis, okay, prophylaxis, prevent, and to treat. But as a healthcare professionals, we have to understand that they play a very important role as healthcare advisory to the government, right, to the political group, to the private sector, and then supervisory role, and then to make sure that we conduct valid research. Okay, when I say about valid research, now we know that currently we are going through a pandemic. So whenever we think about COVID-19, as a healthcare professional, we should understand that what is the current lacuna in the literature, what is happening around us, what are the comorbid states that is affecting COVID-19, what are the research that has to be done. So all those things we need as a healthcare professional, we have to understand and we have to conduct appropriate research. So now, to make sure that we understand our role, definitely as a pharmacist, So we know that it's a very talented healthcare professionals, number one. Versatile and dynamic. I want to use the word versatile and dynamic. Who else can understand the healthcare from a pharmaceutics point of view, from a chemistry point of view, from a pharmacology point of view, or from a botanical point of view? So we are the only professionals who understand healthcare in a complete way. We can understand the structure of a drug, we can understand the dosing of the drug, we can understand different dosage form, and we also can understand the pharmacological effect, the adverse effect, and hypersystem reaction. So we are a very multi-talented, versatile, dynamic healthcare professional. So that is the most important take-home message you have to understand. So now we have to adapt our system for the future healthcare. How can we do that? So now that's the whole concept. I just want to make sure we understand that. So the most important thing is, why do we say that we are multi-talented? Yes, when we see a structure, we understand the chemistry behind it. Based on the structure, we understand the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic profile. Based on the structure, we formulate a dosage form. Based on the structure, we understand the drug interaction. So that's the reason I just want to understand that we are a multi-talented, versatile, dynamic healthcare professionals. So now, what is the major change that has evolved in the last 20, 30 years? Classically, a pharmacist was considered as a drug dispenser, right? Classically, a prescription comes to a pharmacist, he dispenses the drug. However, in the recent 2 decades, the role of pharmacist has completely changed in the healthcare. So now we talk about patient safety, we talk about therapeutic strategy, individual patient-based drug approach. So all those things are done with the help of the pharmacist. So the role of the pharmacist in the healthcare profession has completely changed in the last 2 decades. So we, as a pharmacist, have adapted to this particular change. So now, how did we adapt? So in the pharmacy practice, currently we have different types of pharmacy practice. We have a clinical pharmacist, community pharmacist, hospital pharmacist, pharmaceutical care, and then we have research-based pharmacist. So the pharmacy practice, the last 2 to 3 decades have drastically changed, okay? And we have different types or different roles of a pharmacist. So today, let's look into the clinical pharmacist. So as I told you, so the pharmacist, when you think about pharmacist, I just want you to understand in a big picture, okay? What are the roles? Definitely, we talked about the clinical pharmacist, so we understand that. We talk about research and development, educational training, information technology, right? So there are a lot of places where a pharmacist can play a role. So the role of the pharmacist in a healthcare setting has completely increased. So now let's talk about clinical pharmacy. So now, again, I just want to validate healthcare profession. So pharmacists with other healthcare professionals play an important role. To summarize, okay? So with regard to pharmacy, the pharmacy has evolved. And one of the most important field currently in the field of pharmacy is clinical pharmacy. So now it is a branch where the pharmacists use their skills, judgment, okay, to prove the safety of the drug, the cost and precision of the drug usage. So now think about the setting, think about a scenario in a clinical setting. A pharmacist plays a very vital role with regard to the safety of the drug, okay, depending upon that particular patient. The pharmacist thinks about the cost of the drug, precise use of the drug. So definitely a clinical pharmacy has evolved in the last few decades. So the American College of Clinical Pharmacy, they explain clinical pharmacy as the area of pharmacy that is associated with the science and practice of rational medication use. Again, the word is rational medication use, or to be very specific, we can say appropriate use of drugs. The most important thing here we are trying to say is appropriate use of drugs based on an individual patient. That is the role of a clinical pharmacist. So again, try to understand that we want to rationalize the use of a drug based on an individual patient. I'll talk about that as we go through that. So now, as a pharmacist, I just want to make sure that you understand that usually a pharmacist is a mere dispenser of a drug. If it is a retail setting, the pharmacist gets a prescription, he dispenses the drug to the patient. But whereas in a clinical setting, a clinical pharmacist, he works with other healthcare professionals to pick a particular drug so that the drug will be very effective. The drug will have minimal adverse effect where the drug can be administered to a patient. So the patient, they play a very important role with regard to the therapeutic strategy associated with an individual patient. That is the clinical pharmacist. Okay, so in a big picture. Okay, so again, the clinical pharmacists play an important role with patient care. The most important thing. Number one, optimization of medication. So based on an individual patient, you want to alter the use of the drugs. Okay, so that you have patient care. So that is the big picture. So again, generation of new knowledge that advances health and quality of the life of a patient. So now the most important thing of a clinical pharmacist is with regard to patient care. So the big picture, again, we just want to emphasize to our students and to other healthcare professionals are pharmacists want to play an important role with regard to patient care. How can you do that? By optimizing the medication therapy. We do not want to have more drugs or we do not want to have less drug therapy with regard to the therapeutic strategy. Okay. So again, a clinical pharmacist, okay, make sure that he understands the medication history. Why do we want to talk about the medication history? Number one, you want to know whether the patient may have any hypersensitivity reaction. So you want to counsel the patient, make sure that they take the drugs appropriately. Okay. Prevention and monitoring of drug interaction. As a pharmacist, we understand the value of drug interaction. As the patient is having an appropriate therapeutic efficacy when you take 2 or more drugs. You want to understand that. So you want to look for the adverse drug reaction. Okay. You want to understand the clinical review. What is happening? Is it a new drug? Is it an old drug? How do you want to do that? Ultimately, you want to optimize the therapy based on an individual patient. That's the whole idea about the clinical pharmacist. Okay. So currently, I just got this slide from a recent publication. So think about the current pandemic. So when you think about the COVID-19 medication, you want to make sure that you understand the age of the patient, the sex of the patient, what are the comorbid condition. Okay. Based on that, you want to develop treatment protocols. So the whole idea, a clinical pharmacist is working or collaborating with other healthcare professionals to develop a valid therapeutic approach for an individualized patient. That's the big picture that we want to understand when you think about clinical pharmacy. It's all about an individual patient care, how we can address that questions. Okay. So now we understand that the pharmacists play a very important role with regard to healthcare, individualized healthcare. We all agree to that. We don't have any problem with that. So now we have covered the healthcare professionals. Pharmacists play an important role in healthcare profession. You understand that. And then one of the a new role of a pharmacist is in clinical setting, where you have the clinical pharmacist. So the clinical pharmacist should know how to interact with other healthcare professionals, should understand the value of teamwork and help to make sure that an individualized care is administered to a patient. Okay, so a well-suited therapeutic approach is being administered to a patient. Okay, good. So those two concepts we have covered. Then the last concept that we want to understand here is pharmacovigilance. So what do we mean by pharmacovigilance? It is detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effects. I want to thank Dr. Jayabalan because with the current pandemic going on, right, there are a lot of drugs that have been used and misused with regard to the treatment of COVID-19. So now think about in a big picture, okay, that we might be immunized. We might get, okay, a kind of herd immunity. COVID-19 may be gone, but the drugs that have been used currently for the treatment of for the COVID-19 should be assessed. Why do we want to assess it? To prevent the adverse effect, not only the acute adverse effect, we also have to think about the chronic adverse effect. Because if it is not properly addressed, billions and billions of revenue is going to be lost by treating the adverse effect associated with the current therapeutic approach. Again, with this particular pandemic condition, the role of pharmacists with regard to the pharmacovigilance has greatly enhanced. So the pharmacist should be closely looking for what are the adverse effects associated with the current therapeutic strategies for COVID-19. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so that's a great topic for us to now talk to. I'll just come up with a lot of points now. So again, I go back to World Health Organization and where they design, okay, again, activities relating to detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effect or any other drug-related problem. So who are the masters of the drug? Who are the boss of the drug? Pharmacists. So we should make sure that we understand when a drug is being administered, other than the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic effect, as a pharmacist, we should expect adverse drug reaction and hypersensitive reaction associated with the drug. So that concept, we cannot forget that. It's not always about the dose, the dosage form, what is the mechanism of action. No, as a pharmacist, we should understand we should understand, and we also have to expect the adverse drug reaction and also look for hypersensitivity reaction. Very important as a pharmacist. So where did this pharmacovigilance start? Okay, long ago, in early 1848, Hannah, okay, she was the first patient who died because of chloroform overdose. A simple concept, okay? They thought that this particular patient, they want to administer chloroform for a surgery. But what happened? The patient was overdosed, and the patient died. So that was the first case, if you are thinking, okay, it happened in 1848, okay? Later on, I just want to bring an interesting case to you. Would I have heard about Thaldomite Tragedy? What happened? The drugs were not properly regulated in the 1960s. Thalidomide was a drug that was given for morning sickness for pregnant women. The patients took it, but what happened? The child that were born, they were mutilated. They didn't have proper development of their arms, legs, okay? So that was the most important thing that people knew, that drugs induce irreversible adverse drug effects, okay? So that was the most important case. That is the thalidomide strategy. Hold on to the thought of thalidomide. Very important. So what happened when we knew that thalidomide causes teratogenic effect, which means it affects the fetus during pregnancy? The drug was withdrawn. Is that true now? No. Thalidomide is back in the market. So as a pharmacist, we have to understand the role. So now think about a banned drug, a drug that causes teratogenicity is currently being approved, okay, for the treatment of several diseases. That is thalidomide. So now you can understand the importance of pharmacovigilance. So now we have to weigh the beneficial effect and we have to compare with the adverse drug reaction. So which means the beneficial effect of thalidomide is so high that we are not completely worrying about the adverse drug reaction. So try to understand a drug that induces teratogenicity, the drug that was banned is currently in the market now. Why is that? Because of its potent therapeutic beneficial effect. Okay, that is thalidomide. We'll talk about it again. So try to understand that. Okay, pharmacovigilance, why it was started? To make sure that we follow the adverse drug effect of various drugs. Okay, so now what is the big picture of pharmacovigilance? 2 words as a pharmacist. We look for morbidity and mortality. Morbidity and a drug induce another disease or a symptom. So you all would have heard about antipsychotics, specifically atypical antipsychotics. When you think about atypical or new and second generation, new antipsychotics, it comes with a black box warning. What is the black box warning it comes from? So it can cause hyperglycemia, or it can increase the risk for diabetes mellitus. A simple, I'm just telling you. Or certain drugs can cause severe hepatotoxicity. So a drug can induce another disease state, morbidity. Or you know that a drug can induce mortality. So from a big concept, when you think about the word pharmacovigilance, the two concepts we look for are what are the morbidity and mortality associated with the use of the drug. So yes, the simple words we can use adverse drug reaction, but we are a healthcare professional. We are looking for the morbidity and mortality associated with the use of drugs. So what are the key words when it comes to pharmacovigilance? We look for investigational product. We look for adverse event or adverse experience. We, as a clinician, pharmacist, look for adverse drug reactions, serious adverse events, unexpected adverse event. Okay, when you think about unexpected adverse event, I hope you know where Viagra comes from, where sildenafil comes from. Sildenafil was under the clinical trial for the treatment of hypertension. However, what was the unexpected adverse event that happened? Increased erection in a male patient. So that ended up that drug to be used for erectile dysfunction. So with regard to pharmacovigilance, it's not always looking for a bad thing. You never know that may be a therapeutic value from that particular drug. Okay, think about another condition. Use of dopamine agonist. What happened when dopamine agonist was administered to patients? They were having simple cause. They were having hypoglycemia. Then what happened? Recently, a dopamine agonist, bromocriptine, has been approved for the treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus. Why? Because it can cause a hypoglycemic effect. That makes sense. An unexpected adverse effect. Then we look into the mechanism. It helps for us to have a repurpose, to use a drug, not only for example, our bromocriptine is mainly used for the treatment of Parkinson's disease, but now we also can use it for the treatment of hyperglycemic condition. So think about that unexpected adverse effect when you think about pharmacovigilance. Okay, we are thinking about unexpected adverse reactions, casualty assessment. That is the most important thing. So now think about it, as I told you, with regard to thalidomide. Thalidomide induces teratogenicity, so it was banned. But now, based on this casualty assessment, what do? We try to repurpose. We try to bring a old drug back to the market because of its therapeutic value. So we look for severity. Again, another important thing with regard to pharmacovigilance is look for severity. Is it a mild, moderate, severe? What happens? Okay, what are the most important? So we think about the severity of the adverse drug reaction. Okay, we look for identified risks, potential risks, important risks. The most important thing before I conclude my introduction to pharmacovigilance is we look for the risk-benefit ratio. Okay, the risk of safety and efficacy. We are looking for the risk-benefit ratio. That is very important. I'm bringing, as a pharmacist, this is a very, very important concept for us to understand. Can a particular drug be used for not only for treating one disease state, does it have a potent or multi-pharmacodynamic effect? We want to look for that. Okay, we want to value the risk and benefit ratio. We'll talk more as we go forward. Okay, so with regard to the pharmacovigilance service, we always think about the safety. No, we also look for literature monitoring. I again want to now emphasize, with regard to COVID-19, thousands of publications are coming out. Thousands of publications. I'm not exaggerating. But as from a pharmacovigilance point of view, we want to make sure that we understand and we filter. Okay, we are properly addressing the questions that is required for India. For example, I'm just going to help you. So in India, tuberculosis is a very prevalent disorder. The last 2 years, the amount of research, the amount of money, the funding that is going towards tuberculosis has stopped. I know that. I've been reading a lot of literature. Is it a concern? Yes, it's a big concern. how are we going to address COVID patients or having tuberculosis? That's first concept. Or patients just with tuberculosis, how are we going to address that? Currently, it's a major criteria that we have to address. I'm just bringing one concept. When Dr. Jayavalan sir told me to talk about pharmacovigilance in India, I'm just bringing one aspect. Think about tuberculosis, think about COVID-19, two infectious diseases. What are we focusing on? What are we missing? So big picture, how do we address these questions? Okay. So when you think about pharmacovigilance, we have to understand that a pharmacovigilance can start from the basic concept of the drug development process in the basic research. When I say about basic research, I'm talking about in vitro and in vivo experiment, not on humans. We're talking about treatment of a particular new drug on a cell line, okay? Or a human cell line or an animal cell line. We think about it in vitro, or we think about non-clinical studies. Then we think about the clinical study. So I think we have to, you guys know about the drug development. I'm not going to go into that. But pharmacovigilance has to be done at each and every step during the process of drug development. That's what I want to make sure that we address that question. Okay. Again, when you think about early drug discovery, preclinical study, clinical development, FDA review, post-market monitoring. So during each phase of the drug development, a pharmacovigilance strategy should be there. We should have a standard operating protocol to make sure that we are monitoring each and everything that is happening around the use of a drug. It may be in humans, or it may be at the in vitro setting, or in vivo setting, or non-human trial. We have to make sure that we have a clean pharmacovigilance standard operation protocol. Okay. So now let's start with pharmacovigilance and drug safety. Number one, try to understand it is a completely scientific process. Okay, it's not like reading a storybook, or we are not just fishing in the ocean. No, we know that it's a completely scientific process. Okay, driven within pharmacy profession. So we have to understand that it is a scientific process driven with the pharmacy profession. What do? We collect data. We analyze the data. Statistically, does it make any sense? We monitor. Okay, once there's an alert, now what do we start? We start monitoring. Why do we need to do that? To prevent adverse effect in drugs and therapy. So the whole concept is collection of data, analysis. Statistically, is it making any sense? Then we start monitoring for specific adverse effect, pharmacodynamic effect of the drug. Okay. The most important thing, what are the outcomes? When you think about pharmacovigilance, the most important outcomes are safety and efficacy. So when we think about efficacy, I want to make sure that you understand the potency, okay, the drug interaction, the cost of the product. So when you think about that, okay, that is efficacy. Safety, how is it safe? We want to make sure that acute and chronic treatment of the drug is well studied in a particular group of patients. Okay, safety. So when you think about pharmacovigilance, we are always thinking about the major two outcomes are safety and efficacy of the product. So if there are any students in this meeting, I just want you to understand, guys. Whenever you think about the word pharmacovigilance, as a healthcare professional, we are looking into the safety and the efficacy of a particular product. Okay. So what are the different areas? Okay. Or the specialized, what are the specialization with regard to the pharmacovigilance? The operation, how it is being operated, surveillance, the pharmacovigilance system, okay, the qualified person, who are qualified to do this pharmacovigilance. So these are the four major areas when you think about pharmacovigilance: the operations, the surveillance, the system, and the qualified people. Okay. So with regard to the operation, you understand that collect and record information. They call that as real world evidence, RWE. You want to be accurate. Like this is if there is a scene of a crime scene, what do? We look for a FIR, am I right? Similar to the FIR, first information report, we are looking for a real world evidence with regard to use of the drug. Create standard operating protocol. Make sure that everything is done appropriately. Make sure that case study reports are published in a regular fashion. Okay. You want to have people who understand the job. You want to have a case processor, a drug safety officer, a drug safety manager to do the pharmacovigilance operation. Then we want to make sure that the surveillance, pharmacovigilance surveillance is being done. We perform analysis based on the data. Develop safety update reports. That's very important. Yes, we have the data. We analyze the data. Make sure that you publish the data so that everybody in the healthcare understand what is happening with this particular drug. Okay. Again, you have a lot of jobs with regard to the pharmacovigilance surveillance. Okay. You have scientists, drug safety physician who can help you with regard to the pharmacovigilance surveillance. Then the system. Am I right? We want to have appropriate system who can carry out pharmacovigilance appropriately. That's the whole idea about the pharmacovigilance system. Then we need qualified person to do pharmacovigilance. That's the most important. As a pharmacist, yes, the students are well trained to become a qualified person for pharmacovigilance. So as a pharmacist, we are proud, we understand that we can do we can perform pharmacovigilance in a professional manner. That's the whole idea. I just want to understand the various aspects of pharmacovigilance. So now, the last but not the least, very important. What are the importance of pharmacovigilance? Number one, continuous vigilance. It's not that I start during this phase and I end up this phase. No, that's no way. For a new drug, from the start, from a preclinical study, after the post-marketing, continuous vigilance has to be done on the patient's safety throughout the entire drug development life cycle. Okay, you have to make it moving. The whole process should be evolving, moving. Okay, because we are dealing with the safety and efficacy of a particular product. So now, what can be done? So you want to make sure that that explanation of the adverse drug reaction is understood. Okay, you want to be transparent, and you have to be a time is very important. For example, a lot of COVID vaccines were approved initially for the treatment of COVID-19. There were no transparency with regard to the different types of COVID-19. Everybody wanted to be in the market. Okay, we will think in a very beneficial manner, they want to be treating the patient. But there was also the economic problem associated with the new drug. People want to make money. There was no transparency. So with regard to pharmacovigilance, we want to have transparency, right? And then the whole thing has to be done in appropriate time. Very important, right? Otherwise, we are going to lose a lot of lives. So the timeliness is very important. Additional monitoring. Okay, we want to monitor. When I say additional monitoring, I'm just going to come and tell you what are the different types of groups, special population where we have to take care when it's a new drug. So now, how in the future, what can we do? The most important thing when you think about that, increase the knowledge associated with pharmacovigilance. Okay, that's the most important thing I want to make sure that we understand. How can we do that? We want to publish. We want to publish data. We want to publish books, create new courses, new degrees associated with pharmacovigilance so that we can have new jobs where we have our pharmacists well trained in the field of pharmacovigilance. So I want to make sure that we have a lot of eminent people in the crowd today. Okay. So I just want a small request. In India, yes, you can develop new pharmacovigilance courses or degrees, am I right? Like MPharm in pharmacovigilance, where these people will be the master. They can understand the whole process. Okay. Create new legislation. Yes. As a pharmacist, it is a profession. It's a healthcare profession. We need new legislations to replace the old one that's required for the current time. Okay. Things have changed in the past 20, 30 years. So we have to adapt. To adapt, we need new legislation. Okay. We have to make sure that we create more jobs in the private and public sector where they can help with the pharmacovigilance. That's very important for the India. Okay. So now, the most important thing I want to address is a novel concept, repurposing of drugs. Okay, because of the high attrition rates. So initially, a pharmaceutical company will have 10,000 compounds, okay, to start with to treat a particular drug. But what happens? They just start cutting down, where at last they are working with 3 or 4 drugs. From thousands of drugs, they come to 3 or 4 drugs. So there's a high attrition rates when it comes to the new drug development. It's expensive, substantial cost, and it is very slow pace of new drug discovery. So now what happens? Repurposing of old drugs, the drugs that were banned. Okay, so now we are thinking about the risk-beneficial ratio. We are bringing the old drugs. Okay, and now we want to use the old drug for treatment of various disease. For a classical example, a drug that was banned, Thalidomide, is currently being used to treat, okay, multiple myeloma. Think about that. Why is that? Because of the risk-benefit ratio. So the repurposing of drug has happened. So as a pharmacist, a very, very careful pharmacovigilance has to be taken care of. Why? We are not only thinking about the drug safety, we are to look into the broader picture, what has happened. Okay. So now, other than adverse drug reaction, what are you want to learn? We want to know about the hypersensitive reaction. Very important. Why is that? Hypersensitive reaction can cause immediate death. That's the reason we are talking about the timeline all the time. Look for drug interaction. Very, very important. Other than adverse drug reaction, we are looking for drug interaction. Does the drug loses its potency? Usually in a clinical trial, a drug may show a lot of therapeutic prospect, but during the course of time, does it lose the potency? Then the new concept is look for pharmacogenomic effect. Again, with regard to pharmacovigilance, in India, we have to start looking for pharmacogenomic concepts. What do you mean by a pharmacogenomic concept? Let me say that. A drug, when it is administered, it gets distributed. The most important thing is a drug has to be metabolized and eliminated. Simple concept. A drug has to be metabolized to become eliminated. So if a drug is being metabolized by cytochrome P450 system enzymes, there are certain population who are fast metabolizer. There are certain population who are slow metabolizer. So using this pharmacogenomic concept, the dose of the drugs administered to the fast metabolizer or the slow metabolizer has to be altered. So the pharmacogenomic concept, again, we have to train our students. We have to make sure that we can understand the pharmacogenomic concept with regard to pharmacovigilance. Very, very important. Pharmacogenomic concepts to be associated with pharmacovigilance. The last, I want to make sure that we have to look for special population. We just cannot group everybody to be together. Like example, thalidomide. Yes, it causes teratogenicity in a pregnant woman. But the risk-benefit ratio, yes, it has a potent anti-cancer effect. So let me use that. So we have to think about the special population. What are the other special population? If a drug is being metabolized by kidney, and if you have a patient with kidney failure, now what are you supposed to do? We have to make sure that we have another drug that is not metabolized by kidney, but the drug is being metabolized by the liver. Same condition. If a patient is alcoholic, he has a liver damage, you do not want to use a drug that is being metabolized by the liver. Let's look for a drug that is not metabolized by the liver. That's the concept I want to look for. So look for kidney failure, look for liver failure, look for cardiovascular impairment. Can you administer a drug to can you administer Viagra or Sildenafil to a patient who's already having orthostatic hypotension? No, we can't do that. Okay, look for neurological problem. A patient with psychosis, a patient with depression. Do you think that they will take the drug by themselves? No, it's a special population. We have to make sure that we understand. Okay, as a pharmacist, as a healthcare professional, you have to understand the role of these drugs in a special population. Okay, so now that is the most important thing associated with the pharmacovigilance. So to me, I just want to wind up with the Bhagavad Gita. Work is thine, food is not thy concern. Similarly, as a clinical pharmacist, with regard to the pharmacovigilance for the future, pharmacy profession is a trusted, caring, knowledgeable healthcare profession. We have to make sure that we are well educated. we equip ourselves with knowledge, we pass it on to our students, and make sure that we understand the drug safety and efficacy. I sincerely thank you for giving me this opportunity. I will be happy to answer a few questions. Dr. Jayabalan, I'm done, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Muralikrishnan.
Yes, sir.
Actually, it was a surprising moment during your presentation. We got to have Dr. M.S. Jagannathan to join the meeting. I was requested him to, sir, yes, sir is online. I requested him to start his video.
Yes, sir.
Can we have some words from Professor M.S. Jagannathan, sir, who is our teacher who taught pharmacognosy? Sir, can you say a few words of blessings to two of our students on the stage? Are you hearing us, sir? Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. But we are really excited to see you on the board. Thank you, Dr. Muralikrishnan. This is a wonderful talk, and you have taken this pharmacovigilance into the different direction. This is the second side of the coin. Actually, all people are thinking that pharmacovigilance takes a drug which is very potentially harmful to patients, should be banned after critical analysis and signal. Everything is on one side. We were hearing the talk for the past 1 week. And what are the processes to be done during the pharmacovigilance? How to record ADR, how to analyze the ADR, how to take decisions by pharmacists. So all these things we have discussed in different talks of different speakers. Today we are seeing the other side of the coin, and we are able to see the second idea that the drug can be repurposed for another disease if the ADR is, what I mean to say is, if it is useful and potential. So we can say it has a potential for another disease. So thank you for giving us another thought, and you have thrown light on COVID plus tuberculosis. So that is another important thing to look upon by pharmacists in this point of view. So in this National Pharmacovigilance Week, we have got different ideas to light up our research ideas. So I just want to thank, simply thanking is not sufficient. It's a little word. With that, we cannot pack everyone for feeling into it. So even though I thank you for your representation, Dr. Murali, in this occasion, I just thank all the speakers who have participated. Every people say that Allur Pharmacy College in Jayabalan is conducting more and more webinars. It's not like that. We are just organizing, we are just scheduling the events, but it is all the kind of the people, kindness of the people who joined and who are readily accepting our request to deliver a lecture to our students and teachers. It's all because of you resource persons, including Dr. Muralikrishnan, Dhanasekaran. I just wanted to thank all the resource persons who have accepted our request on every series of lectures that we have conducted in Allur Pharmacy College. This is a kind of happiness for us, and this is our commitment for the profession to do further. And is there any question from any students or teachers by the speaker? So if there is any question, we can have the question. Otherwise, we may go for conclusion. And today we have the valedictory function by 2 o'clock. Though it is conducted physically for the first year B Pharmacy students and first year diploma students, with all COVID appropriate behavior and precautions. I just wanted to have a live stream in the YouTube also. The same event will be streamed in the YouTube. So the other students who want to see can have a link over there. Thank you. And Dr. Jagannathan has sent one blessing through the chat box. So thank you, sir. Actually, thank you very much for your blessings. And thank you, one and all, for being with us in this morning. And thank you, Dr. Muralikrishnan, Dhanasekaran. Good night. Have a nice sleep, sweet dreams. Good night.